why, if somebody's looking to move, why do we automatically think we need to ask what the cheapest place to retire is? It may not have the weather you want. It may not have the terrain you want. It may or may not have so many things, that you desire and that you enjoy. Like it may be really far away from the beach. In this conversation, we're going to rethink our cheapest place to retire on a budget concept with these principles. And here it is. People still using the word cheapest place to retire, which a lot of people are just turned off by that because they figured out that cheapest isn't the way to go. It is just like anything else in life. You start out when you're younger thinking that you are saving money by buying the cheapest, and you figure out really quick that that's really not saving you any money. And it's the same thing with retire abroad. And so it got me thinking, why are we so focused on the cheapest? We get sucked into this kind of thinking about the cheapest, and it works on us. It's like it works on us every time, by judging by the number of videos that you see with this title and the number of views they get, like the 10 cheapest places for Americans to retire, Whereas our focus should be, what is it that I do enjoy? Oh, by the way, I talk about things like that we've done in the past, like live in a travel trailer with children and everything, and travel the world. Those are just things we enjoyed, and I just want to be clear that your values are your own. You may enjoy living on a horse farm or something, or or being a bicycle nomad or something, or just staying home and cooking fancy Italian food every other day. So to each his own values, right? Before we start saying where, when Angie and I first married, we lived in the Pacific Northwest, and we would go to the beach. There's beautiful beaches there. I mean, there is unmatched beauty in the Pacific Northwest, whether it's at the beaches or in the mountains. I mean, this beach is beautiful, there's no question, but those beaches are even more beautiful. But, you can't swim in them. But they're beautiful to look at, but the water's so cold most of the time, you can't swim in them. So a person needs to ask themselves, well, what is it that I enjoy in life, and what makes me happy? And a lot of times, as Americans, we're so used to being able to ask ourselves such a question. And, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, right? It's ingrained in started out with the Constitution of the way the country was founded. And so it's one of those things, whereas a lot of people, in other cultures may not have an opportunity to ask themselves. But I'll tell you, in our travels, I've seen some of the poorest people have some of the best locations in the world with the best views you'd ever seen. Just jaw-dropping views that some of the poorest of the poor locals had. The meek shall inherit the earth. It's amazing the natural beauty and scenery that these very poor people were able to enjoy, and that they inherited. And so I think that we're told to think in certain ways because we're just surrounded by this way of thinking, It's like, why do we start our conversation with the cheapest something? You know, where's the cheapest property in USA? Where's the cheapest anywhere can be? Or I should say, not necessarily anywhere, but pretty close to anywhere. I mean, you do have high cost of living areas, but you know, you don't have to be right in the middle of a high cost of living area. You can go to the peripherals and you know, find a spot that doesn't have to be all that far from where you are. I have friends that have been living way out in the smallest of the smallest town out in the country, and have always been surrounded by nature and trees and woods, and they've always you know, had the kind of house that, you know, of their dreams that they enjoyed, and that was their life. It's a pretty simple, stable life by all accounts and observation. You would say, what a boring life. You know, a lot of people might think, you know, city folk might think, my gosh, what a boring life. But for them, according to their values and what they enjoy, they're happier than two clams. You know, it's just so whereas we had to travel the world, we wanted to travel the world, so, and we made it happen. And we didn't ask ourselves, where's the cheapest place to go? We just went and we looked at it and decided, well, maybe we can make this happen. And that's what we did. I mean, you know, because we did go to Western Europe, we did go to Malta, we did go to Italy, and we made that happen. My encouragement to you today is not to be looking at things in such a way as to say, well, what is the cheapest? Somebody asked on a forum, what is the cheapest place to buy property in USA? And they asked because they figured that people in this retire early lifestyle forum would know the answer, and we did. And we gave them the answer. Clearly there are areas in USA that are expensive, and clearly looking for ways to work within one's means is always at the forefront of one's mind. But it isn't by starting the conversation with where's the cheapest place to retire or where is the cheapest place to buy property, because another concept is that a lot of times those cheapest things don't stay cheap, because if you take a look at that movie with Laurel and Hardy called Utopia, it's exactly about this subject. It's about how they are in search of utopia, but when the word gets out, I won't give you a spoiler, you know, the crowds show up and it's just the whole scene changes. And that's how it is with things that are promoted that way as being the cheapest this and the cheapest that. And so what it comes down to is that we need to come down to analyzing ourselves and knowing what makes us happy. It's like these umbrellas right here that we got. I mean, you know, you can sit here and get super fancy, but we got these umbrellas for $7. We got 2 of them, and we got 2 umbrellas. They're heavy-duty beach umbrellas that, for the price, they're just amazing. We can plop these down. They don't even have to go into the sand. They're heavy-duty and strong. They do the job, and we enjoy the beach. We're able to protect ourselves from the sun and to have plenty of shade wherever we want it. They just work. Just to give you an example, we went looking around specifically for beach umbrellas, and they tried to get $30 from us, some of these thrift stores around here, because they were beach umbrellas. But when you went away from that concept of tourism, beach umbrella, there you are, you just get these other umbrellas and they work even better than the beach umbrellas. My point is, if you allow your mind to expand into a possibility thinking, instead of being focused so much on a particular way of doing things, such as looking for the cheapest place to retire in the world that doesn't stay that way, and then some things are cheap and others aren't, like the property prices double and triple, and it just you know, it just loses its appeal. And yet here we are. We enjoy being at the beach. The temperature is amazing here, and pretty soon I'm going to go fishing.
Well, I know that when we moved to Cuenca, Ecuador, Ecuador, they were saying that Ecuador was the cheapest place to move to, or one of them, and it really wasn't. It was Thailand.
You know, we fall prey to these marketing slogans of the cheapest place to go, and then you're just competing with the crowds. Well, there's a lot of low cost of living areas in North America that wouldn't necessarily qualify as the cheapest place in America, you see. That's my point, is that you can go to just about any place, and if you are flexible in your thinking and how you do things, I mean, you can get, for example, you can get a little bit of a smaller home. You can buy a home, you can pay cash for it. You know, you can, you know, if fixer-upper is not your thing, you can, again, you can just go smaller. There's people that live very well on the kind of means that you would think you could only do so if you go abroad. So there's a flexibility in one's thinking that comes to play, and nowadays it's not like it was even just 10 years ago when we got on the internet and we would hear these concepts about cheapest this and cheapest that, and that's all there was to consume. Nowadays there is so much content to consume that, I mean, if it anything at all, if it just gets a person to kind of think a little bit more flexible in their thinking and maybe start coming up with solutions that are a little bit more amenable to their values and what they're trying to achieve in life. Because the minute you say the cheapest this, the cheapest that, there are so many pitfalls.
Well, it becomes a gimmick. Don't fall for the cheapest gimmick.
When it comes to the internet, it becomes this crowd psychology. And if it hasn't been named that yet on the internet, like what's the cheapest place to buy property, which it's only a matter of time. When it comes to videos, you know, sooner or later somebody's going to make a video, the cheapest this, the cheapest that, no matter what. So it's the age we live in, and whenever I see, you know, videos about the cheapest place to buy property or something like that, I'm always very skeptical, and I'm always looking to, okay, if certain towns are mentioned in a video, then I'd be like, okay, well, we'll have to skip those towns. You know, skip those towns because they're so tiny, only a half a dozen people showing up, maybe 10 people or 20 people showing up is going to change the pricing landscape. So, you know, when they all show up at once and they all call the same real estate agents and give those offices a sudden uptick in traffic or volume, customer volume. So I hope I've encouraged you to think outside of what the typical content that is available now in regard to this cheapest, this or that. I hope I've encouraged you to think outside of that way of doing things. And thanks for coming to the video. Have a wonderful day.